Hello, my friends. Attorney Anthony Bandiero here, bringing a Roadside Chat. This one comes from an officer in Texas. And basically the question is can officers seize evidence during a medical call? All right. So the answer generally is yes. Let's kind of look at what's going on here. So my officer says, look, most of our officers have medical training, right? They're EMTs and so forth. They respond to medical emergencies, acting in a medical capacity. In some of these circumstances, they'll find the patient in the bedroom, and while on scene, the officer observes something illegal: drugs, guns, meth lab, child porn, insert the blank, right? So do we have the authority to seize that evidence under Plainview, or is that now prohibited under a case called Caniglia versus Strong? Okay, so let's walk through it. Officers, when they enter homes, can enter homes various ways. Consent. They can do it under the emergency aid exception, right? Hot pursuit and so forth. We used to call it community caretaking when we would go into homes to render medical aid, but that was, community caretaking as a doctrine to get us into homes was eliminated by Caniglia versus Strong. In that case, briefly, what happened was Edward Caniglia was threatening suicide. Well, he basically made a statement to his wife during an argument that, after the tipping point where they were arguing, he basically said, "Why don't you shoot me now and get it over with?" And he did have a firearm in the house. The wife then left the home, went to a hotel, tried to call Edward in the morning. He did not answer. She was suspecting the worst. She called police for to go check on him, and he was alive. Admitted that he said what he said, but that was not suicidal. And the police said, "You know what? Basically, it would make us feel better if you just go get evaluated. Go take the ambulance ride." I guess the ambulance was on scene, or they called them. And he says, "Look, I will go as long as you don't take my firearms," right? So they promised not to take the firearms. That's the allegation. He took the ride voluntarily, gets checked out, gets released, comes back to his home, and there's no firearms there. So what happened in the meantime, while he was gone, the cops then had the wife, come over to the house. They spoke to her outside the home, and one of the officers then went into the house to go seize the firearms, I guess as a best practice, just in case he did come home. They reignited this argument, and he did something bad. We used to call it community caretaking, and it was a good doctrine to use in these cases, because community caretaking doesn't necessarily require like a form of exigency or emergency. It just requires like you're doing something as a best practice. You're trying to help people not get hurt and so forth, and help people. And the Supreme Court says that community caretaking is not the right doctrine for homes because it does not require the exigency. Instead, it's the emergency aid exception. Emergency aid does require, reasons to believe that the person inside the home needs or wants your help. And if you don't help, they can be in immediate or imminent risk of harm, death, injury, and so forth. Going back to our cop that's acting as medical. Well, when cops are entering homes under the emergency aid exception to provide medical care, like the firefighters and the EMTs do, the rules are a little different, right? If the police officer has an ulterior motive, and they're only primarily going to the home to try to hopefully find Plainview evidence, that would be a problem. So for example, there was a case out there where the officer heard a medical dispatch for this house, and he knew that house was occupied by a suspected drug dealer. And normally he would not go on that call, but he wanted to this time because he was hoping to find, while present inside the home, assisting, medical, he was hoping to find Plainview evidence, and he sure did. And the court threw it out because he went into the home for an ulterior motive. You can't use, that medical call for criminal investigations. So he mixed up his, the doctrines. And so But here, these officers are trained in professionally trained, right? Not just like CPR, like I got. These guys are actually EMTs, and so they do legitimately respond to these calls. That means that the primary reason is on the up and up. And if they had like a little side ulterior motive, like, probably going to see some Plainview evidence here, that wouldn't be prohibited. It's just, what is your primary motive? And so if you go in there for the right reason, you can take Plainview evidence. Now, the other issue to walk through is, okay, fine. I see Plainview evidence. I'm here lawfully for the right reason and so forth. Well, a lot of states may not allow that evidence to come in, under the Good Samaritan rule, right? If something like, so for example, typically somebody will call for medical and, hey, my boyfriend is overdosing, right? A lot of states don't want to penalize that person for calling the police and end up charging them with crimes. So there is a Good Samaritan exception. And I don't know how it applies if the suspect calls him or herself, but typically other people call. And if there's possession in plain view, they don't charge for that crime. You have to look at your state and see if you have that law. You would already know if you have it, right? But that doesn't get you usually out of the trafficking offenses, the meth labs, the child porn, the guns, the stolen property, and other things like that. It just gets you out of the possession charge from the most part, from what I know about these laws. Okay, so to wrap up, if cops go into a home for medical and they are acting on the up and up, they're there primarily to help the occupants, you should be fine. If you see Plainview evidence, then it's Plainview evidence. You can seize the evidence and you can charge the people if it's against state law. All right? All right, there you go. Guys, if you like what we're doing here, hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends, and I hope I have helped you, even if a little. Get it right every time. Thank you.
When it comes to law enforcement training, we are the gold standard. Visit bluetogold.com or call 888-579-7796 to learn more about our training, books, and free webinars. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel.